Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Peak to Middle School. My name's Narwhal. I'm here with Kyle.
Yeah, you are.
And we're also joined by our good friend Mike Crisp.
Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to be here at Narwhal Studios overlooking the beautiful eastern shores of Lake Sammamish.
Wow.
Yep. So I think right off the bat, we should just do a quick little intro for those of you who are, longtime listeners. This episode's going to be probably way different, than any episode we've done before, but we're super excited. We've told the story of our good friend Connor, who passed away a few years ago now. We've told some really cool stories, like our favorite memories with him. We've kind of also told like the general story from our perspective of what happened. And I know like a lot of our loyal listeners are familiar of Connor, and like people will comment and message like about Connor, even though they never met him, which is really cool. But Mike is Connor's dad.
Yep.
And I don't know, Mike, thanks for coming on. This is really cool.
I'm excited for the opportunity to talk about the subject today because it's obviously very near and dear to my heart, and something that I feel passionate about getting the word out about testicular cancer and catching it early. So yeah, we're going to be talking about balls and nuts today, guys. So it's going to be an interesting episode. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, like, this is something it's very important to us. And I think it's something that everyone really needs to hear. And our audience is a lot of young men, and even for the ladies too. This is very important information that you can share with someone that you care about, and just listen.
Yeah. And I mean, since like we've checked our demographics, most people that listen are middle school and high school guys. So it's a really important thing to talk about. And I think, up until Connor got diagnosed, I didn't know anything about it. Like, I didn't even know how to check my balls if I needed to, or,
right.
So I think this will be really cool. But yeah, so I guess, obviously for you, Mike, I want this to kind of be anything and everything you want to talk about that you think is important.
That's a dangerous opportunity, John.
This is your platform to share
okay.
everything you want to with the world.
But I guess to start, maybe just to get like kind of a spot to kind of start this is maybe could you give a little backstory on like Connor's situation and his diagnosis and everything?
So Connor was diagnosed in late July of 2017, and he was diagnosed in the emergency room, which is not where you want to get diagnosed, because it means typically that your cancer has advanced. So on that morning, he'd called me at work and saying, something's wrong with my stomach, Dad. My stomach really hurts. And based on what he told me, I thought maybe it was an appendix. So I said, well, why don't you go down to urgent care down in Issaquah and get it checked out? And so I think his mom, Lisa, took him down there, and they looked him over, and based on where he was saying the pain was coming from, they said, this is not an appendix, and you should go to the emergency room at Overlake in Bellevue. So Lisa took him over there. They called me, and I left from work and joined them over there. And they went through a series of tests. The first thing, they did an ultrasound of his stomach, thinking that maybe there was something in the abdomen. They saw something that looked a mass in the stomach area that they thought maybe was food. And so then they went and did a CT scan, which gives you a better view. And then that's when they saw the mass. And from there, they did an ultrasound of his testicles, confirmed that that there was also a mass in his testicles, and did blood work that shows that he had cancer. And so I remember the Dr. Heidelberger coming into the room and telling us, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I really believe you have testicular cancer. And Lisa was in the room, and she walked out into the corridor by where the nurse's station was, and she fainted, which that's a great place if you're going to faint right in the ER. So luckily she didn't hurt herself. So after that, then they did some more scans of Connor's chest, his lungs, and I can't remember somewhere else, just to see if they could see more spread where it had metastasized. We're all in shock. Connor was, you guys know Connor, he's pretty stoic, and he just, he kind of took in the information. And then they told us, go home, and then you'll need to make an appointment with the urologist right away. And so you're trying to process all this information, that your son has testicular cancer, which, like you guys, I think I'd heard that Lance Armstrong had it years ago, but you don't really give it. It's not discussed much because it's a pretty rare cancer.
Yeah.
But we go home that night and we're sitting down in the family room where you guys had many of your parties. In fact, the one where I remember coming in the day after, and you guys, you were sprawled out on the carpet down there.
Yep. That sounds like something I do.
Yes, it does. And so we were sitting around there, and my phone rang, and I just, I didn't answer it because I didn't recognize the number. And then pretty soon Connor's phone rang, and he answered it, and he was talking to it, and it was a urologist who had been contacted by Overlake and said, hey, I understand there's a suspicion you have testicular cancer, and I want to see you tomorrow. Be at my office at 8:00 a.m. And that was like a huge prayer answer because, we didn't know who to call and so we went in the next day, and he looked at Connor, looked at all the imaging and the blood work, and said, yes, you have testicular cancer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an orchiectomy, which is in Western terms would be like a castration. Okay. Where they remove the cancerous testicle, and they don't do it through the scrotal sac. They do it through the groin, which we can talk about a little bit later. But so while we were there, the urologist figured out a slot the following week for Connor to have his orchiectomy, and then he asked us if we had any more questions, and he said, "All right, you guys have an appointment with oncology." That he had set up. So we went right from there, right to oncology, met with the oncologist. Overlake had just opened up a brand new chemo infusion center. Mm-hmm. And so they gave us a tour of that, and they sort of laid out the preliminary schedule, and and it was a whirlwind. So I think that was like July 27th of 2017.
Okay. So the first thing was he got one of his testicles removed.
Yeah, he had his right testicle removed. Okay. And that was it's a day surgery, and during that procedure, you have the option of getting a prosthetic testicle put in, and how do you make a decision about that? I mean, it's not a question that comes up. Connor elected to have a prosthetic testicle put in, which he lovingly referred to as Righty 2.0. And
I remember him talking about Righty 2.0.
I remember him not really being a huge fan of Righty 2.0.
No, Righty 2.0 never really sat right with him. It just didn't feel right. And so actually later on, during another surgery, he had it removed. So so he was a one bagger at that point. So,
okay. So what's kind of the process? So then he got that one removed, and then what was the process like from there, like with him? Because then he had to start chemo.
Yeah. So you have to wait for the orchiectomy to heal, obviously, because chemo's hard on your body. And the nice thing, it's not a nice thing, but with testicular cancer, they really have the treatment regimen really dialed in. Mm-hmm. There was some work done at Indiana University that really sort of discovered the chemo regimen that's kind of universally used. And initially he was going to have 3 rounds of 3 types of chemo: bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin. Each one could have some side effects. The bleomycin can affect your lungs, so he had to have a lung function test ahead of time, which was his lungs going in were fine. They also did a hearing test because one of the drugs can create tinnitus, which is where you hear you hear a ringing or a buzzing or some sound in your ear. So he had this all done at Overlake, and he the first time he had the bleomycin, he did not react well to it. He had some issues with his lungs that indicated that should not be one of the things he takes. So then he went from 3 rounds of 3 drugs to 4 rounds of 2 drugs.
Okay.
And he had went through all those. I can't remember exactly. I mean, it probably started, say, in maybe late August, early September, and went till probably mid to late October. And so, they'd taken the CT scan at the time of diagnosis to see this mass, not just the mass in the testicle, which was done by ultrasound, but to see the mass in his abdomen, in his retroperitoneum. And so they figure out the size of it, and then the goal with chemo is to kill the cancer and hopefully shrink the mass.
Yeah.
So he finished his chemo, and then had another CT scan to see how it went. And unfortunately, his mass hadn't shrunk. So
At all?
No.
Wow.
I mean, in fact, it might have even. I mean, it's hard when you're looking at a CT scan to get really precise measurements, but it might even have gotten a wee bit larger. But
And is that common, or is that just something that once it's big enough, it's just harder to kind of shrink it down?
No, because the component that creates that is called teratoma, and I'm not a doctor, obviously, but it's something that doesn't react to the chemo. The chemo doesn't shrink it. Now, the chemo can kill active cancer within the rest of it, within the lymph nodes and such, but it doesn't kill it doesn't shrink teratoma. And Connor's was so large that it was involved with his what are called the great vessels, the interior vena cava, the aorta, and it was near his kidney and other things like that. So the challenge with teratoma is if you leave it, even though it could be benign, a couple of things can happen. It can continue to grow, which in Connor's case wasn't acceptable, or it can transform into malignancy. And so
what's that?
Malignancy, that's active cancer.
So it can transition from benign.
From benign to malignant.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the protocol is to remove it. And so, and they do that through a surgery called RPLND, which is it's a big surgery. It's a really big surgery. So,
could I ask,
Sure.
before we kind of keep going in the timeline, what was the process, or what was it like for you guys as a family and for Connor during chemo? Because I'm sure, I don't know, depending on who finds this or who listens to it, maybe it's someone who currently has testicular cancer or who a family member has had it.
Right.
That must have been really tough during it.
It was, we initially went with Connor to his appointments because, this was the first time anybody in our family had to go through this, our direct family anyway. And so we went with him, and maybe once or twice, and then after that he just would drive himself. It takes a lot out of you. It's not an easy regimen to endure. And you guys were probably around Connor as much as I was. I think he, in his typical Connor fashion, bore it pretty well. I don't think he wanted to be pitied about it. I think he tried to cure on as normal as he could, but it takes a bit out of you.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking about Connor, I have so many memories of him during going through chemo and everything, and his attitude it's one of the most inspiring things to me that he would drive himself to all of his appointments. He would talk to all of his doctors on his own. I know for me, that's not something that I would be comfortable with. That's something that I would want to consult with my parents, whatever. But that was something that he was so, he just was going to do this himself.
Yeah.
And, even at the time I was living up in Bellingham with Connor, and he would come live with me between chemo sessions. And, I really was touched by how strong he was through everything and how much he wanted to do it on his own and never wanted to be pitied.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Connor is,
Take your time if you need it.
he was sorry.
No, you're fine.
I would characterize him as kind of an old soul. And, he was, I don't know, he was just a really, really cool kid. And, we thought all along that this was going to be fine. Just based on the statistics, excuse me, testicular cancer is not very common. There's like maybe 8,000 or 9,000 cases a year in the U.S., right? So it's not a real common cancer. The unfortunate thing is, because of where it originates, a lot of young men, especially really young men, are embarrassed to talk about it. You know, we're always taught to, our private parts, and obviously if you're a young teenager and going through puberty, things are happening and changing, and, God forbid anybody see that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the goals of this, is to try to sort of destigmatize self-exams for testicular cancer, because I don't know when Connor started getting testicular cancer. I like to think that had there been symptoms that he discussed with us or with a doctor beforehand, and he got in earlier, that especially the metastasized mass would have been much smaller and easier to deal with. But the type of cancer, testicular cancer he had, was non-seminoma. There's two basic sort of major groups, seminoma and non-seminoma. Non-seminoma is, as I understand it, is faster growing. And so, I mean, by the time Connor was diagnosed, he had this mass inside his retroperitoneum that was probably the size of like a medium-sized grapefruit. I mean, it was big. It was like 8 or 9 centimeters by 10 by 11 or something like that. It was large. And so that's what I want to get across in this podcast, and not just to the 15 to 35 age group of men. Testicular cancer is the number one cancer within that age group, right? And that's part of that is your demographics. And so I think it's a great opportunity to get the word out. But I also want to reach the parents. I want to reach anybody who cares about a young man, whether it's mom, dad, girlfriend, partner, wife, cousin, whomever, because there just is not enough awareness about testicular cancer. And I hope that nobody that besides Connor ever gets it. Mm-hmm. But it's so easy to detect it early. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, is that I want to destigmatize that. I want to make it easy for young men, 13, 14, 15, even that young, to say, there's something wrong with my nuts. Yeah. And not be afraid to, one, speak to their parents about it, or two, go to the doctor. Face it. You guys probably remember the first time you had to do your sports physicals, and
I was not looking forward to it.
No,
turn your head and cough. It's like, oh my God. And so that's one of the goals I want to get, especially with parents. I mean, I'm involved in a Reddit group for testicular cancer online, just a forum or sub, whatever you guys call that now. And I can't believe the number of young people that have this and or suspect something. So they've done the first part. There's something's going on down there that's not normal. Yeah. But yet they say, I don't know how to talk to my parents about it. And me and many of the other older people that participate there just say, man, you got to tell your parents. You can't. This is not something that you got to catch it early. Yeah. And so that's why that's this push. And I mean, Connor's been gone for 3 years now, and you guys know when he was alive, he was getting the word out to do self exams, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I think
I did it. I had always noticed that there was a small bump. Now this is kind of graphic, whatever. But
that's the whole point of this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like right. It's like, who cares? There was I had a small bump above one of my testicles, and I had noticed it probably when I was 13, 14, 15, and I didn't know really what to do. It wasn't something that I didn't really think about going to the doctor. I didn't think it was testicular cancer. I didn't think anything of it. And so I never actually even got it checked out until Connor got diagnosed. So I went and got checked out. I got an ultrasound. It turned out it was just a cyst. It's not, it's nothing that's, dangerous, but it just goes to show that even young people, I'm an example of it. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I didn't want anyone to hear about the little lump on my nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I also, after Connor got diagnosed, I also got my balls checked out, but I was at college at the time, and I went into just like the campus place or whatever, and it was a weird. I was feeling really weird. It was like kind of just painful down there, not like really bad, just like kind of subtle, annoying pain. And I went in and they did they checked my balls, and then they did like an EKG, and basically like nothing was wrong. But I found out from that process that like the only thing they could figure out is that I was very stressed and like a really bad time in my life, like, and for my body, I think that for some reason, when I get incredibly stressed or like really unhappy or just there's a lot going on, my balls hurt. Which is really weird, but like, and I've noticed that since, like, in times of my life in the last 3 years, when I get really, really stressed, my balls hurt a little bit. But at least I know, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I went, and it's not even that weird. Like, you get, at least for me, there's all this anxiety about like these checkups, but then you do it, you realize like they're a doctor. This is what they do.
I mean, they see so many balls and penises. They don't care. Even if you've got a spectacular something going on, great. I mean, it's just work for them, right?
Yeah.
So John, have you noticed, a lot of people when they get stressed, they carry it in their face and they get wrinkles. Have you noticed any wrinkles on your scrotum?
It's probably tons of them.
I don't know. I don't check all the time. I don't like bend down and see the wrinkles, but I think we're good.
Okay.
I think everything's good. But one thing I also wanted to say is during the time when Connor was going through chemo and he would go back and forth between home and Bellingham, one night at school, I was like super unhappy and like wanted to move back and leave college, and I FaceTimed Kyle and Connor one night. And it was like, I just remember that, like, there's no way that he could possibly be feeling that good after a day of chemo, like he's got to be feeling pretty shitty. But I just remember calling them, and we talked we FaceTimed for like 2 or 3 hours, and he was so like energetic, and like it made my day so much better. But then that night I was like, damn, like he didn't mention anything about his chemo, or he didn't mention feeling shitty. And it was just like really cool to me that he went through chemo that morning, and then that night, like, he made my day a lot better, and he didn't even show like he was struggling.
That's how he was. I mean, you guys know how he loved you guys.
Yeah.
And you loved him back. I mean, that's, at some point we'll have to talk about the whole sloth thing, and because I think that's a great story too. I mean, the friendship that you guys had with him, and the fact that some of his closest friends were the last people to see him alive, besides the hospital staff. I mean, that's a blessing. It really is a blessing, because you guys meant the world to him. And so you can't tell it now, but I find great peace with that, because it's a special group of people.
Yeah. And I know we were really glad to be there. And not only that night, but during chemo, there was one time when we went and we kind of sat with him during chemo. And yeah, we have a really special group of friends, with the fact that
It's
we
amazing.
all kind of can come together like that. Like, that was, I don't know, I think our group of friends, I don't think a lot of people can get that many friends together for these like big moments like that, but like we could get everyone there.
And so many things had to happen too for everyone to be there. The pass had to open up to get someone through. Someone had to change a work schedule. I think your flight got changed.
Yeah.
Like, all these things had to happen for all of us to be there on that last night. And that's something that I'm always grateful for. And then also one other thing I wanted to bring up about Connor and his attitude, during chemo and everything is, during all of his chemo and, all the treatments and stuff, he kept such a good attitude and such a, don't feel bad for me, like, kind of keeping the spirits up with everybody else, where everyone else would kind of feel like we should be somber around him, and he's just like, I just want to have fun, we're friends. I just want to hang out. And so one time he came back, and I remember he walked in the door, and I expected him to maybe not be feeling well or whatever, but he walked in the door and he said, "Hey, I have this great idea for a Snapchat video," which, it's just this dumb video you send your friends. He's like, "Okay, so I'm going to hold the camera like facing my abdomen, and then you're going to phantom punch my abdomen So I wasn't actually punching
like
him.
shadow boxing.
Like shadow boxing him, saying, and then the caption's gonna say punching the cancer out of Connor. And so and then I posted it because it was on my phone, and I got so much hate for it. And everyone's like, I can't believe you just did that. Why would you do that? And I was like, I would not have done that without Connor's permission.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and I'm glad you really didn't hit him because that's what it was right in. It was right in here.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't just do that, guys. But like, that was.
I'm saying that's the kind of attitude is like being able to. It's something that I've taken away is being able to kind of poke fun at when you're in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Being able to make something out of a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a gift. I mean, he was a special young man. There's no doubt. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to get the message out to make parents and people who care about young men open to this. And I'm just going to tell a couple of stories that have related to me. So Nancy Balin, who gave me this great shirt to wear. I don't know if the camera can pick that up.
It says, "Don't be too chicken to check your nuggets."
Yeah. I mean, this woman, her stepson, Jameson, was diagnosed at age 14 with testicular cancer. And he, as it turned out, had started having symptoms when he was 13. So very, very young, right? And he was afraid to talk to his parents about it, And so it metastasized. By the time he got diagnosed, it was stage 4. Now, Connor was stage 2C. So stage 4 is serious stuff. Yeah. And Nancy has made it her mission to try to get the word out. And she's the one who gave us some of the props that you may see later on. And she's just this dynamo. She's, I think you guys heard her at the run that we went to. So her stepson, Jameson, went through the orchiectomy. He went through the chemo. He went through the RPLND. He went through a round of salvage chemo. He had 2 other surgeries because it had gone to his lung.
Wow.
He had teratoma up in his neck. He tried to do a trial. Anyway, he died at the age of 20 after going through all this. And at some point, Nancy was telling me in a recent conversation that the doctors came up to her and the family and just said, we have nothing else to do, and told Jameson and the family, you need to, whatever you want to do, go do it. And so Nancy contacted people, raised some money to send Jameson and some other family members on a month-long trip to Europe. But when Jameson was, he knew he was dying, and he told the family one thing he wanted to do is he wanted his college money, because he only got to go to college for 1 year. He wanted the rest of his college money to go to his sisters, because he knew that the financial burden from the treatment had made it so there wasn't money for his siblings to go.
Yeah.
So what her organization, Family Jewels, did is it was trying to raise awareness of testicular cancer. They also raised money to give scholarships to siblings of young cancer patients.
That's awesome.
So that they could continue their education. And they're going to have a virtual auction coming up in March, and I'm hoping John can put something, a little graphic up there, so if people want to contribute. But Nancy would go anywhere and talk about testicular cancer.
Yeah.
And she told me, I think she said there's 37 euphemisms for testicles, and she knows all of them. But the point I want to make is, you've heard the term, oh God, I died of embarrassment when I did that. Well, in a sense, with Jameson, his embarrassment about talking with his family about this contributed to the late stage diagnosis. And, and that's something that it hurts me so bad. I mean, the same thing with Connor. I don't know if he didn't have symptoms or if he just didn't think they were anything, but that's why this is so important to me, because I certainly don't want other young men to have to go through the extent of treatment that Connor or certainly Jameson had to, and I know I don't want anybody else to go through child loss.
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely the worst. So a little bit about testicular cancer. So like I said, there's only like 9,000 cases a year in the US. So it's not super a common occurrence, and it's really highly treatable. I mean, even with Connor's diagnosis, we were totally confident that he was going to beat this cancer and go on. I mean, there's like, even with that at stage 2C, there's like a 90+% survival rate.
Yeah.
And it's because they have it dialed in so well. So if we can get the word out to young men to check their nuts and bring it, and then, check them and then take action. And like Kyle discovered, or you discovered, I mean, you have a scrotal reaction to stress. Kyle had a cyst. I mean, there's other things that can be discovered by something irregular with your testicles, but why not rule out the serious one, or find out what it is, and then you can deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think is so important. So one of the things that Nancy let us borrow, excuse me.
Oh yeah, you guys, if you're on one of the audio streaming platforms, this is why you should check out the YouTube version, so you get the full demonstration.
This is going to be good. So this is Mr. Scrody here. Now, Mr. Scrody is a medical grade testicular tool for detecting, to teach young men and people how to find tumors. And so inside here there are, okay, so it's hard to tell front from back.
Yeah.
So, all right, so hang on, so that's the front. So here, okay,
I can
so,
hold the banana.
okay, so here's the orientation. Okay, does everybody have that? All right, front and back. Okay, thank you. So to do a self-examination, it's really, really simple. It's best done in a situation like after a shower where you're relaxed. I would not recommend doing it at Narwhal Studios where it's so cold, because if these were real testicles, they would be sucked up inside the body and you would not even be able to see them.
That'd be like up there, right?
Yeah, because it's so friggin' cold in here. So, the basic thing is you want to be relaxed, and then you want to cup the testicles, so you know how guys and girls probably, so they can kind of swing, right? So you want to hold them, and then you want to palpitate them between your fingers to feel. And what you're trying to feel is just, you've got to know what yours feel like, right? And you've got to know if you feel something irregular, like a lump. Now, so testicles, okay, let's use some fruit here. We got this beautiful fruit bowl. So, all right, so let's say that these are testicles. So it's not unusual for one to be slightly bigger than the other, okay? And they should have some give to them. If they're hard, that's not good. Okay. That's a sign that you need to get checked. Now, so that's one example. Okay, so let's say these are testicles, right? And so you're feeling, and you're feeling if this one's good, and all of a sudden, here you go. Here's Mr. Lumpy. Okay, so that would be a sign that that's something that should be investigated.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't remember what I brought this one for. I don't remember.
That one's got a big
That
lump.
one's got quite the bump.
Yeah, Oh, I know. So now if you have two testicles and one is considerably larger than the other, that's not a good sign either. Okay. So those are some different things to look at, and you can Google this stuff. There's demonstrations, but I guess the other thing. So when you're doing this basic anatomy here, so you got to get the banana out of the way. Okay. So if the banana's here and you're doing this, you're not checking for testicular cancer. You're doing something else. So you got to move the banana out of the way. Okay. Move the banana, and they can swing and pivot.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Pivot your banana.
Yes. And seriously, and if you do this once a month, that's usually good. And if you find something, act on it.
Yeah.
That's critical. Don't assume it's nothing. Get it checked out. Rule it out.
Yeah.
Rule it out that it's nothing.
Yeah. 2 questions.
Yes.
That for the people listening. So, one, is it always, this might be a dumb question, but is it always like on the actual testicle, or could it be testicular cancer, but it's like in the sac, but not attached to the testicle?
I believe that's a good question. And again, I'm not a medical doctor, but I believe it's attached to the testicle.
Okay.
And the other thing you want to do is you want to get familiar with just the structure of the testicle. So on the back of each testicle is something called, I think it's epididymis or something like that, which it sounds like one of those Greek, I am epididymis, I am the king of the testicles, and I rule all within my realm.
It's the nut god.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so that's on the back. And then there's also the pipeline on the back that carries the spermatic cord and stuff like that. So those aren't the lumps you're looking for. No. So, I mean, it's just really simple. And I think it would be so wonderful if people got comfortable enough with this, and moms and dads talk to their sons about it. That, can you imagine, John or Kyle, if your mom, like once a month, hey, John, have you checked your nuts yet? I mean, that would be, I mean, that's the sort of communication that, because then it's comfortable, right? You're not, okay, mom, and that's what you need. You need that communication back and forth so that there's an ease to it.
Yeah. I know. I think it'd be cool if you could treat it something like,
same thing as like a sprained ankle.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or just like, I'm trying to think of an example of something that we do every month. I don't know. Maybe I'll think of one as later on, but like something that you do regularly every month, no matter what. It's just like you just check.
You brush your teeth, check your balls.
Well, I mean, so I'm assuming that you guys and most of your readers or your listeners shower pretty regularly. I mean, I'm hoping so.
Oh, I mean, it's been like 4 months. But
yeah. And when you shower, I'm hoping that you're showering down under, and if you're not, you're disgusting. Yeah. But so it's a perfect opportunity to check.
Yeah.
And there's actually one of the there's an app that one of the testicular cancer support groups. It's basically a monthly reminder that they'll send you a monthly reminder.
That's awesome.
And the other thing is, guys, if you we don't want to ruin the shot here, but if you stand up and put your hands straight down, they're going to be in perfect nut. Okay, there you go.
Show.
Yeah.
Look.
See, look at that.
Right there.
Perfect position.
So we are biologically designed to do testicular cancer checks.
Yeah.
So please, this is my plea. This is, if this gets more guys to check it, and someone finds it early when it's just stage 1 and all they have to have is an orchiectomy, that would be great. And by the way, guys, so an orchiectomy is the fancy word for taking your testicle, right? So you have 2 well, most people have 2 testicles. I'm not going to say everybody. So that's God's backup plan, right? So if you have 1 testicle removed, you can still produce testosterone and you can still produce sperm. Now, this is probably a question that you guys want to ask, but you just don't quite know how to ask it. So the orchiectomy does not inhibit the banana. Okay, the banana can still work.
Still fully functioning banana.
Fully functioning banana still works, right?
Nice.
And you can do that with one testicle. Now, in the case where you go through treatment like Connor did, so you have 1 testicle removed. Now you're going to do chemo. There is a risk of fertility issues, right? Yeah. Because the chemo can mess up your fertility. So the protocol is that you visit the fertility preservation place.
Yeah.
A lot of people call it a sperm bank, and the Seaman First National. I don't know, but they and so that's what happens. You go and you make some deposits, and they keep it frozen for you. Yeah. And if you have testicular cancer, the Livestrong Foundation, which was founded by Lance Armstrong, actually, at least when Connor was going through it, they provide some financial support to help pay for the storage fees. They don't let you store that stuff for free.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, you can get testicular cancer, get cured, and live a long and good life.
Yeah. Where can what's the process if someone feels something and they want to get checked? Where do they go? Like,
I would start with your family doctor. Okay. Generally speaking, and this is something that Nancy shared with me, a family doctor is going to get. They usually are going to take more time. It's more of a sort of a well-rounded approach. I used to think just go straight to a urologist. But the key is you have to tell them the issue. You cannot.
Just hope they find it.
They're not mind readers. I'm not feeling well. You know, that you have to tell them the issue.
Yeah.
And if you're not satisfied with what they say and you still think there's something wrong, then get a second opinion or go to a urologist. I mean, the gold standard for discovering testicular cancer is an ultrasound. Okay, they don't do biopsies on it because they're concerned that you biopsy it could spread cancer cells, and then so you get an ultrasound and blood work because there'll be markers within your blood that indicate that there's a cancer reaction, and then generally you're gonna, if you have testicular cancer, you're gonna lose one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because you have to get it out of there.
Yeah.
And I can speak in terms of the ultrasound. It's not something that anyone needs to be afraid of. It's a very simple thing. They just put a little bit of that, whatever the jelly is, petroleum.
No, it's probably not petroleum. It's probably water based.
Okay. Either way, they put it on. It's nothing that you need to be afraid of.
Did it feel nice actually?
It was kind of like I'll say it was warm.
Oh, that's good. They didn't give you some cold.
Like if it was cold, it wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. And it doesn't take too long. It's probably like 20-ish minutes. It's a quick thing, and it's probably the most accurate way of finding out.
It is. It totally is, because they can see the makeup up there, and then they combine that with the blood work, and then they know what they're doing. And now I've not had a testicular ultrasound. So are you laying down for this, or are you sitting up? Or
yeah. So I was laying on my back, and they gave me a towel. So if they just to make you feel a little more comfortable, they give you a towel for the banana. Yeah. Gave me a towel for the banana. And then I just laid on my back, and they gave me a pillow. I had a blanket and everything, and they just did the ultrasound. What'd you say?
Did they tuck you in?
They didn't tuck me in. They just laid me down and went to work, and everything turned out good. So it's really simple.
Yeah. Did your towel stay flat on your stomach?
Towel stayed very flat.
Okay, good.
That's good.
That actually was that. No, that's a fear.
That's a legitimate concern.
Yeah,
and I was
pop wood.
And I was concerned about that, and even going in, especially like getting physicals when you're a young kid. Like that's my biggest worry is just like sitting there in the lobby, just like don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. Maybe that was just me.
No.
I think
everyone.
Trust me, when you get to be 50, then you'll have another type of procedure, and it's the same thing. It's oh my God. I mean, but you got to feel bad. I mean, it's their work.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, we'll like still talk more about like different little things, but could we continue on like the timeline?
So after Connor finished chemo, he had another ultrasound to see if the mass in his retroperitoneum had shrunk, and it hadn't. So then the next step is it has to be removed because of the size, and so that's a surgery called retroperitoneal lymph node dissection, or RPLND.
Okay.
It's a big surgery. I mean, it's a surgery that you need to have done by an experienced surgeon in a place where they do a lot of them. It's not something that most urologists want to do. In fact, Connor asked the urologist who did his orchiectomy, said, "So if I have to have that, would you do you do that too?" And the guy said, "Oh no." He said, "I've done one or two of them, but," he said, you want to do it with an experienced surgeon." And Connor so his procedure was an open procedure. They have some that they can do with robotic surgery that, I don't know. The jury is still out if that's as good or not. I'm not going to comment because I don't know. But the basic procedure is that they cut from the sternum down the middle of the stomach and around the belly button. And then they go in. Retroperitoneum means, I think it means behind the belly. So in that space is aorta, the interior vena cava. I think the pancreas is there, kidney. So there's a lot of important organs back there. And Connor's was large and it had to be removed. And so he went and had that procedure done. And we were told that he tolerated the surgery well. And so, we thought we were rounding second base, heading for third, and heading for home. And so he finished that surgery at about 1:00 on January 18th, and then just went to his hospital room, and we saw him on the 19th, probably, I don't know, about 3 in the afternoon, and I know he had gotten up and walked for the first time, because it's obviously, because of the extent of the surgery, it's very painful.
Yeah.
And they want you to get up and walk, because during the surgery they take your intestines and they sort of move them aside and put them, because they have to get underneath.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you can have some it's called ileus, I think, where it's basically dysfunction of the bowel. So they want you to get moving and get blood circulating and try to get that back. So he had done that one, and he was sitting up in a chair. But he was tired. I remember before you guys got there, we were talking to him. He just fell asleep in sitting up in the chair, and then he'd come back. And so, then when you guys all came, we knew how much he wanted to hang out with you. So, I kissed him on the head and, said goodbye. Told him I loved him. And then, later that night, we got a call. Actually, Lisa got the call on her phone that he'd been found unresponsive and that we should get to the hospital. Apparently, they tried to call my phone beginning at around, 11 o'clock or something. And I had my phone turned off because we were so tired just from, the previous surgery and then just not getting a lot of sleep. And so we drove to the hospital thinking that Connor was responsive, and we got there. They directed us up to the ICU, and a woman pointed down to the end of the hallway. And we went down there, and you could see a room, and there was just tons of medical people in the room, and also medical people and medical equipment outside the room. And we walked up there to try to go in, and they said, you can't come in right now. We're working on your son. And we didn't really know anything at that point. And so Lisa, stuck her head in, and we're pretty panicking at this point. It's just Lisa and I, and then they brought a social worker over and took us to a little waiting room, and then we were just waiting there, and then a doctor came out and said some things, they weren't sure what was happening, and said that he needed to get back in there. And he said, we're working hard on Connor, but you should be praying very hard. And so, that was, at that point, we knew things weren't good, especially since they wouldn't let us go in and see him. And so we called the rest of the kids up and said, probably should get to the hospital. And we waited and saw people, walking down the hallway, and I don't know if they were leaving or we saw equipment being moved and stuff. And then pretty soon the surgeon came back and said, I looked up at him. He just shook his head and said, I'm sorry. He didn't make it. And that was 3 years ago. I can tell you it's the worst. Child loss is the worst, especially when you'd fought so hard. And Connor fought really hard to try to stay alive, but things happened that he couldn't do it. And so, yeah, that was December 20th of 2017. So, and those of you who are seeing this, I'm sorry I'm so emotional, but this is why it's so important to me, because this doesn't happen very often. What happened to Connor is so rare. I can't even find a similar situation. It doesn't happen. And that's why it's so critical to try to detect this early before it metastasizes and creates all these other issues. Testicular cancer tends to travel in a known path. So apparently, as we're developing boys, our testicles are up inside our abdomen. Mm-hmm. And as we develop, they descend into place in the scrotum. And so generally speaking, when you get cancer of the testicle, it goes back from whence it originated.
Okay.
And that's why, so the first spot is usually in the lymph nodes, which is, where Connor's lymph nodes, that set of lymph nodes, are a bunch of them actually. The crazy thing is, we later got the results of all the stuff they removed from him, which was the large mass and dozens of lymph nodes, and they were all cancer-free. Wow. So the chemo had done its job. The chemo had killed the active cancer. It didn't kill the teratoma. It didn't shrink the teratoma. So that's why, what we went through, what Nancy and her family went through, it's not the norm. The treatments for testicular cancer they're really good. They're really dialed in. We were told by the emergency room doctor that, if you have to get a cancer, this is the one to get if you're a male, because it really is treatable. Even when it goes to the lungs, they can treat it. Even what Lance Armstrong had it go to his brain, and he was able to get it treated. You know what I think would be fun to talk about is the sloth thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the tattoos.
Yeah.
And just if you guys could tell the story of how that whole thing went down that night.
Sure. Yeah. Our obsession with sloths because of Connor.
Sitting right there.
There's a sloth there. There's a sloth behind Kyle. There's a sloth on both of Kyle and my biceps. Yep. A lot of our friends also have sloth tattoos. So, yeah. Kyle, do you want to explain the origin of the sloth?
Maybe, Mike, I don't know why why sloths to him were.
I don't really know where he got infatuated with him, but all of a sudden that he was all about him. And I kind of think if you look at a sloth, sloth sort of has a negative term in our society of laziness and stuff like that, but they're actually pretty damn smart. They hang out in trees. They eat what they want. When they go up higher in the tree when they need more sun, they come down from the tree to poop, so they don't poop in their little tree.
They're always smiling too.
Yeah, they're always smiling. But Connor just had an infatuation with them, and it sort of developed. I don't know if it was right before he got diagnosed with cancer or when he was going through treatment, but one of his goals was to go to Costa Rica after he got cured to see a sloth in the wild. Yeah. And as you guys know, our family took that trip for him, and exactly 2 months to the day that after he died, we were in Costa Rica with a guide in this nature preserve, and he pointed to the sloth, and the sloth just stared at us for the longest time, and we took it as a sign, but what's more important to me is what happened that night when you guys had the party at our house. And it was before it was before the surgery, and I'll just let you guys talk about it because I think it's just, to me, it demonstrates what a tremendous group of friends you all were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
and so as far as the tattoos and why we got the tattoos, that conversation took place in a Qdoba. I remember it was John, me, and Connor just sitting there at the table having food, and out of nowhere, Connor kind of just randomly brings up, my surgery's coming up, and just, you know, if something happens to me, you guys are going to get sloth tattoos, right? And we're like
he was like totally like joking.
Just out of nowhere.
He's like, yeah, like if I die, like you'll get sloth tattoos, right?
We're like, yeah, sure.
Like, yeah, okay.
Of course, why not?
Yes, pass the tortilla chips.
Yeah. And so that's the story of that as to why we ended up getting him, and a bunch of our other friends ended up getting him. And I remember right after he passed away, when we all were kind of together and trying to, you know, heal together, we all had that conversation of like, we're doing this, right? And everyone was on board. And yeah, there's probably about 6, 7, 8 people that I know that have sloth tattoos now.
Yeah. Wait, can we rattle them off? Just
sure. Yeah. Me,
so you, me, Chief, or Alec.
Yeah.
Jordan, Chris,
Braden,
Madison.
Colin has one, right? Doesn't he?
Colin has one.
L.
I think Brandon got one too.
Oh wow,
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's about 10 people.
So like 10 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you know when did we like where do you know when or where we like mentioned to everyone else in the group that like about this like sloth thing?
I think it might have been the day he passed, when we were all
at
together
Jordan's house?
at Jordan's. Yeah.
Okay.
We were all just kind of, we all just had that conversation and everyone was on board, and we ended up doing it, I think, a couple weeks later, like early January, mid-January, we ended up doing it.
Yeah, we went up to Bellingham.
Yeah.
And we did it up there.
Yeah.
But
then you were talking about the party we had in the garage. You call it a party. I call it just hanging with the boys in the garage. Yeah.
But yeah, so when was that? That was
about, I think,
a couple days before.
Yeah, I want to say the 17th maybe
surgery?
or 16th.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the story of that?
I mean, all I remember is it was just a circle of probably about 4, 5, 6 of us just in the garage, and we were drinking. It was kind of just this last celebration of, you know, Connor beating cancer and right before the surgery and all that, and some very that was the first time that I had really had those really big conversations with Connor about life and you know, things that he dealt with and things that I've dealt with, things that we've all dealt with. And for me, that was like the first day that I really felt like I had connected way more with my friends than ever before. And then right after Connor passed is when we all really started feeling like, you know, we're all so connected, and like I need my friends.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would, if I had your friends, I'd need your friends too.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that night it went from like we were just kind of hanging out, drinking, like eating chips and queso.
Chris spit in a bag of chips on accident, and then Connor ate the chips, and then like Connor spilled queso on John's back somehow.
Yeah, we were like we heated up queso, and we were walking back out to the garage with the chips and the queso, and like, no, he went to give me a hug, and he gave me a hug, but the bowl of hot cheese was in his hand, and as he hugged me, it like poured onto my back, and I was like, "Ow!"
But you know what? Those men, I mean, that's what friendships are.
Yeah,
it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know? And he was blessed.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with the fact that like that night we were having a good time and it was like fun, but then we also got to a point where everyone was just kind of going around having like
I heard it got really deep.
Yeah, there was like some very, you know, heavy conversations that I don't know, I think a lot of guys friend groups, not everyone. I know some people that can get really emotional with their guy friends, but a lot of guys are kind of, you know, it's like, oh, fuck you, bitch. Oh, fuck you. And it's like,
and
you know,
we're like that.
Yeah. And that's fun. Like, don't get me wrong. But I think that there's a lot of times when guys need to have those like sentimental moments.
Right.
And like a lot of friendships don't have those. But for us, that was like the first time we had a real deep one. And I think what was cool for me is after he passed, those type of conversations like never went away.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool is now we can talk about that stuff all the time, and everyone's on like the same page. It's like, if you ever want to talk about something, we're all ears, we're all about it. And I think a lot of friend groups maybe don't have that level of like connection.
And I think from that, I also feel like I know my friends so much better, and I know the deeper aspects of my friends, and they know that about me too. And when you know that about somebody else, you understand more how they function and why they do the things they do. And it really like, it just, with anybody, when you have those conversations, you just become so much closer with them. And I love my friends.
And I think that's the legacy that he left, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's probably one of the most important things that that will remain, because you guys, just as we had his bond as his family, you guys have that bond as his friends. And that's it. I just feel like he made everybody a better person. I mean, Connor, as you know, was not shy about calling people out.
Yeah.
I mean, as you guys know, I was a horrible basketball parent. I was a total banana. And Connor, a couple different times said, "Dad, you got to settle down, or just you can't come to my games." And I respected him for it, because I needed to be put in my place, and he wasn't afraid to do that. And I remember when he didn't play his senior year, and we went to a game, and you know, that was hard for me to go to games just because of what happened, what transpired. But I went to a game, and I was getting all wound up, and Connor was sitting next to me, and he reaches over and he goes, "Michael, settle down. Michael, I'm not playing. It's just a game." You know, and that's the kind of guy he was. He was such an old soul, and I don't know, just neat kid.
Yeah.
He would always be the worst person to argue with, because he would use reason, and he would be the most calm person in the argument. So I'm getting all wound up about this, and it's not even an argument that matters at all, and I'm so passionate about it, and then he hits me with, "Why are you yelling?" And I'm like, "Well, damn, I don't know."
Good question. I don't know why.
I think I just lost this argument.
Yeah.
He was wicked smart. I've never played cards with him, but I heard he was a pretty good poker player too.
He had a whole poker set that I didn't even know he had it.
Oh yeah, I think he found it like through Next Door Neighbor or something, or
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. No, and it's been cool because a lot of our listeners have noticed like the sloth thing.
Yeah.
And they see that, they've seen our tattoos. And so now it's kind of cool because I feel like PIMS as a show is like, it's kind of like our mascot now. And like everyone associates that.
And
really cool.
I'm so grateful for you guys to do that, because I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
I feel like a piece of him is still with you. And I know if he hadn't passed, he would be here.
Right.
Talking about this and probably doing a way better job than me, because he cared about people, and he wouldn't want to see people suffer. I wouldn't want to see people go through what he had to do, and he would probably have some unusual way of making the point, but he's always here with you guys.
Yeah. I don't really know how to like word this question, but I guess I don't know, like for us, having our friends come together really helped us heal and mourn after he passed. And I guess my question is like, after he passed, how did you guys as a family and as a dad, like, how did you kind of try and cope and like deal with it? Because I know that there's got to be people listening that have lost loved ones or currently dealing with it. And
it's hard. I think you have to for me, I had to get some counseling, because my counselor told me that child loss is the worst, because it's disordered. You know, the parents are supposed to die before their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's been the hardest thing for me, is because I've explained it to people, you know, we haven't mentioned this, but so Connor got diagnosed say July 27th of 2017. On August 30th of 2017, our only granddaughter, Johanna, died. She wasn't even yet 17 months, died of meningitis. And Connor couldn't go to her funeral because he was getting chemo, and we didn't want him in a hospital, because his immune system was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, someone FaceTimed, or not FaceTimed, Facebook Live or something like that, the service, so Connor could watch it. And then we pick up the pieces from that, and then Connor dies. And so a couple of analogies I use is one that's like, imagine your life as a jigsaw puzzle, right? And you look at the jigsaw puzzle, and it's not perfect. I mean, obviously there's lines all through the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
There's some of the edges are torn up. And so what happens is, imagine somebody taking that jigsaw puzzle apart, taking all the pieces, mix them up, throwing them up in the air. They land on the ground, and they say, now put your life back together. And so you put your life back together, and there's a couple pieces missing.
Yeah.
And it's just very disordered. Yeah, I don't know that I've done a really good job, frankly. I mean, this helps. I mean, this is very fulfilling to me. You can't tell because I'm babbling like a baby, but it's because I care so much about it. I'm trying to find positive out of what happened to my son. And if we can get this message out about regular checking your nuts and seeing it, and making young men aware of it, making young men comfortable with it, making parents comfortable with it, and encouraging it, and creating a dialogue where it's not, son, I think you need to go and do that examination of your testicular scrotal region and see if there's any abnormalities, Yeah. No, check your nuts. Okay, check your balls, because that's what's, I mean, there's probably some kids that would respond to that. I don't know any of them. But just have that, parents love their kids. We want the best for you. We really do. You may not always agree with, but most parents really want the best for their kids. They want their kids to be healthy. Yeah. We don't want you dying before us. Yeah. Not at all. So this is healing for me. Mm-hmm. It's also great to be with you guys, because you guys are allowing me, your podcast, to get this message out. And I just get to hang out with you, and I get to see how you guys are doing. Yeah. And you're doing good. And that warms my heart. Mm-hmm. It really does. So I love it on the 20th when you guys come to the house on December 20th, because Christmases are hard. I love it when you tell stories. Mm-hmm. I love that you loved my son. That's kind of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, thank you so much for just, sharing Connor's story and your story, because I know how incredibly difficult it must be, but I'm just glad that, Kyle and I can talk about him, and our friends can talk about him, but it's, you were his dad, and I'm just so glad that we can tell his story and
continue his legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And try to use the story for good, because that's what he would have wanted. I mean, I know he always was putting other people above himself. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, since he's passed, there's been a lot of cool stuff that people have come together to do. Like at one of the local parks, there's now a bench dedicated to him, and a little, what do you call it? It's
a plaque.
A plaque on like a rock that has his legacy on it.
It's got his own hashtag.
Yeah. And that was an example of the great community that we live in. I mean, you guys obviously are great friends, but there's a wider community that has been so good to our family. I mean, from just the support that we had when Connor was diagnosed with cancer, and you know, and then after he passed, and you know, the amazing turnout at his funeral, and the bench at Pine Lake Park, and the plaque, and those are great. But I think it's the human connection that to me is the most special, because you know, I think there's sometimes a misconception that if you've suffered child loss, that you might get, this is a silly word, but jealous of, you know, how other kids are still here, and you know, and how they're doing. And man, I have the complete opposite feeling. I just celebrate all you guys' achievements. I just celebrate you, because you were such an integral part of his life. And I feel like he still lives through you. I mean, so that's a critical part of the healing too, because I when I'm around you guys, I feel closer. I mean, I feel like it wasn't that long ago that you were crashed out on the floor, you know, and all the crazy stuff you guys did, and just, I don't know, man, it was such a special group, just a special group of people, and that's what's really, really important to me.
Yeah.
You know, if some of the vernacular that we used here is offensive to someone out there, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's real, you know, and I can tell you what's way more offensive than hearing the word nut or ball or whatever is watching your kid go through surgery or watching your kid go through chemo. That's really offensive, and that's the stuff that hurts way more. So I'm hoping there's a lot of adults that will watch this and gain an understanding of just how important it is to, you know, to have the conversations with your kids. And I think, I just have a sense that if you can get that communication open to talk about testicular health and how to do that, I just think it's almost like a different gateway that kids and parents can communicate. Yeah. You know, because let's face it, I mean, there's probably not a lot of times when your mom said, "Hey, Kyle, have you checked your nuts?"
0 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the right context, you know that she would be asking you to do that because she cares about your health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wants you to feel comfortable that you can come to her with something that you might find so embarrassing, but her love for you overrides all of that. And she wants the best for you.
And I feel like if you can get to a point with your parents or whoever you live with or who cares about you, if you can talk to them about, you know, your balls, you can talk to them about a lot of other things too.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the balls are a conduit to greater conversations.
And it opens up mental health.
Yeah.
That's another example of conversations that people don't have enough of.
Yeah. I mean, it's take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your testicular health. Don't put stuff off. Act on it.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, act on it.
Yeah.
It's life is tough, man. As you guys all know, I mean, I'm 60 years old and it's still tough. But you just gotta keep trudging. You know, one thing came to mind is how am I dealing with this? And the grief to me, after Connor died, I mean, I would just be anywhere and just break down. How are we doing for time? Okay.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Totally fine.
And finally, I came to the realization that I was going to be real about this. I wasn't going to try to be a big, strong man, which I'm not anyway, but I'm not big, but I'm not strong. But I wasn't, well, it's just because it's a tight shirt. But I was gonna be real about it because I had to be real because I was hurting that bad. And the grief for me, to make another analogy, is it's like it's this big wave that comes up, and it's a wave that's unexpected, and it just takes you and then it just pushes you down. And it pushes you down, and you don't know sometimes if you're going to have the breath to get back up. And at first I tried to fight it because that's the natural reaction. I'm going under. I got to fight it. And that was not successful. So then I came to the realization that I know it's going to happen. It's going to be unexpected. When it happens, I sort of release myself to it, and I let it push me down. And when I stop to feel the pressure, the analogy is, I kick back up to the surface and I take a breath of air. And as long as I can keep kicking back to the surface, I'm going to be okay. And so I don't try to fight the grief, as you guys can see here. That's been healthy for me. So I don't know if there's that's to any value to people out there, but grief is real. Grief is real in any sense, and I to suppress it, I just don't think is healthy.
Yeah. And I know for us, Kyle and I, and for our friends, or for me at least, I think it's really important to have the friends that near you, or have friends in general that you can get like really real with, and you can be really what's the word?
Vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerable around, and that they like listen and don't judge you. And I think that what's scary is some people, I think when you're in high school or middle school, still in these cliques, like some people don't have many of those people, right, or like everyone's so judgmental or like so fake or whatever. And so, it's not easy, but I really encourage people to try and realize like, who are your real friends,
mm-hmm.
and who do you like? Like, are you spending time around people that you could go to with these type of like emotions? Because a lot of times in high school, at least for me, there was a lot of people I was around that I wouldn't want to talk to them about this at all.
No, because you probably couldn't find a safe spot. They might ridicule you to your face, then they might post something about it later. And we all need people that we can talk to. And if that's it, for you guys, you have each other. I have friends like that too. And I have, I've been to counseling, and you got to take care of it. It's because you guys are what, 23?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a lot of years.
Yeah.
You got a lot of years ahead of you. So, but I am so grateful for the opportunity, like I said, to come on your podcast. And once I made the decision that I was ready to do it, I'm really excited about it. I hope the word gets out. I hope it's well received. But it's just really great spending time with you guys too.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, we're glad you came, and I'm really glad you reached out to us. And I don't know I'm really excited about this podcast because this is definitely the most important thing I feel like I've ever been a part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is something that's way bigger than us.
Yeah, and our show, like, if you're listening and you're someone who listens to PIMS all the time, this is obviously way different than like a normal episode. But to me, what's so cool is like, as a listener, people know like we can be goofing around and like, shoot the shit or whatever. But there's also a lot of times where we get pretty real and have like these heart to hearts on the show. And that's why I think, to me, just podcasting in general is so cool, is because you can spread so much information. And I don't know, I just am really happy we did this episode.
I'm excited, and I've talked to a lot of people that I've talked to so many people to tell them that I was going to do this and why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I have so many people that I have to, when you get it produced, that I want to send the link to, and I'm hoping that it will get wide distribution, not for any personal fame, but just to try to get the message out, and I hope that it resonates with people.
So before we kind of transition to the end here, I just wanted to say Mike is going to send me a bunch of resources and just websites or different, I don't know, foundations or whatever.
There's a lot of, there's some nonprofits that people have been affected by testicular cancer that they want to get the word out, and the Reddit sub that I talked about is is a good source. You know, I'm on there just as a family member, and I've told a little bit of Connor's story on there. I try not to post a lot of it because a lot of these people are just new to testicular cancer, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, and you know, but I do try to let them know that what happened to Connor is very unusual. I mostly go on there just to try to support him and said, hey, you know, the group of people on this sub are amazing.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, what's interesting about it, even though it's virtual and it's online, the camaraderie that you guys have in your friends group is similar on this. I mean, there's older guys, there's young teenagers, and people just want to, I mean, there's wives, girlfriends that come on there. How can I support my husband or my boyfriend while he's going through this? And what does this mean? And what was your experience? And these people are just so open and giving, because we all want the best for everybody. I mean, I would love if my son was alive, but just because he didn't make it, that doesn't mean that I don't want everybody else on there to get cured. I mean, I totally do. I don't want anybody to have to go through what we did.
Yeah.
And so I'll get you that information. And, you know, again, I want to thank Nancy Balin of the Family Jewels Foundation. She's provided so much information, and frankly, she's the inspiration.
Yeah.
She's the one that sort of demonstrated to me how to take something so horrible and how to, you know, what can you do with this event? And she's been the Pied Piper of Check Your Nuts for around here for a long time. She's involved nationally and internationally. And so John's going to put up he'll put up some information about, because of COVID, the events they usually have to raise money for these scholarships can't happen. So they're going to have a virtual auction, and John will post up the website. It's live right now. And gosh, if anybody that's watching this can chuck a few bucks towards it, you're helping a sibling of someone who's gone through cancer that needs financial help so that they can just go to college. It's Nancy doesn't make any money off this. It's all volunteer. Yeah. She works her butt off. So thanks to her, and thanks to you guys again. And fellas, check your nuts.
Check your balls.
Yep, just check your nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. With all that being said, there are new episodes of this show every Monday and Thursday. Obviously, this is not the normal episode, but I think for me, this is cool because this is the most serious one we've done, but it kind of opens my eyes. Like, maybe we could have proves to me we can have more serious conversations, and we could have some other people on who have some wild stories or whatever, and that it can still be a really great episode. So with that being said, Kyle,
would you like a banana, Kyle?
Yeah. While I hold this banana,
would you like to tell the people where they can follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at KyleStafford36. You can also follow the podcast at PIMS Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Yes. You guys, you know, if you want to tell your friends about this episode or just about our show in general, it helps us out a lot because word of mouth is definitely the best type of promotion. So you can follow me at Hey Narwhal on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Mike, thank you again. Is there anything else you want to plug or?
No, I don't. Not involved. I'm on Twitter, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not doing a lot of social media. If this is well received and there's other ways to get the word out, I'm open to that. I just want to. I want to try to make a difference and carry on what I know Connor would have wanted to do. So
great. Well, with all that, check your balls, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya. Check your nuts.
Good night.